kind of shifting the horses, you know. Right. The Vedic, three Vedic epistemologies and faculties of consciousness. This is basically the presentation. Let me go through it with. So the central aim of the knowledge is the recovery of the self, as Sri Aurobindo says, our true self-existence. Interesting word here is recovery. That means that not the discovery, but recovery, something which helps us to remember ourselves. So the Vedic epistemology is what Sri Aurobindo says. This is his quotation. In the ancient conception of the universe, our material existence is formed from the 5 elemental states of matter: the ethereal, aerial, fiery, liquid, and solid. Everything that has to do with our material existence is called the elemental, the Bhuta, that which pertains to becoming, that concerning becoming, literally, the Bhuta. In this material, there move non-material powers, manifesting through the mind force and life force that work upon matter, and these are called gods or devas. Everything that has to do with the working of the non-material in us is called Adhidaiva, that which pertains to the gods. But above the non-material powers, containing them, greater than they, is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us is called the spiritual, the Atman. Well, it's quite clear, yes, there is the outer consciousness, the surface, Adhibhuta, when the senses are turned outside and perceive the world as such, in the outer sense, outer being. There are inner operations or inner faculties which operate in the vital and the mental realm, the Indriyas, as we know them. And there is the innermost being, Adhyatma, our inner unborn self. So here the scheme, the innermost Adhyatma, the intermediary Adhidaiva of the mental and vital plane, and Adhibhuta, which is turned towards the physical manifestation. Sri Aurobindo says in The Life Divine that the unknown is not the unknowable. It need not remain the unknown to us unless we choose ignorance or persist in our first limitations. For to all things that are not unknowable, all things in the universe, there correspond in that universe faculties which can take cognizance of them. And in man, the microcosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. We may choose not to develop them where they are partially developed. We may discourage and impose on them a kind of entropy, but fundamentally, all possible knowledge is knowledge within the power of humanity. Why he says so? Because everything in this universe, everything, there's nothing in it which doesn't have it, has a consciousness behind it. So that consciousness, those faculties which manifest in that particular self, being, creature, can be consulted, can be used, can be utilized, can be exercised, experienced. That's why we can know everything what is here in this world. because behind everything is consciousness. So there are faculties, universal faculties, which can take cognizance of them. And in man, as microcosm, these faculties are always existent and at a certain stage capable of development. So we can develop these faculties and know everything. This is a good, very beautiful idea. So here again, this scheme, we can turn our senses, our consciousness, our faculties of consciousness outside or turn them inside. And on this, everything depends. What are we looking for? We are looking for the outer world or the inner being. So the faculty. Yeah.
Last time you said that when you, when in essence it's the same thing. It's just about a different viewpoint. If you're turning it inside or outside.
Right.
So what do you really mean? I mean, logistically, what does that really mean?
It means that the inner self and the outer self is the same self, only it is viewed by consciousness differently. The outer self, when it is viewed by consciousness in this way, is showing us the temporary presentation of that unborn self. That temporary representation is in time and space. So it is on the surface. It is away from the self-awareness, so to say. But when it looks within, then it finds the self together with self-awareness, so to say. And in that sense, that self, which is knowing itself, is known by these consciousness or these faculties, has completely different perception. So to say, it looks like as if it is different from the outer. But truly speaking, the outer being is the same self as the inner one.
But it's distorted.
It is distorted by consciousness, by faculties perceiving it in this way. And this distortion creates the world. This is the creative force which makes all things spelled out in terms of details and infinite details and unique presentations of one being. So that's what this look outside does. But that fundamentally, this circle is one circle, though we are showing it as three, one within the other. Truly speaking, the inner core of the Atma and the outer core of the Bhuta is one being, only viewed differently by consciousness from within. Viewed as outer in time and space and viewed as inner beyond time and space. Well, it's a very simple scheme, but very complex thought. In our first presentation, it was said that the consciousness, the second creation, was introduced into the first. So this adhyatma, this yellow circle, is that introduction into it. Yeah? The consciousness entered it and started to work upon it, to bring it back to its self-awareness. The periphery of Atman, of the self, became Adhibhuta, there where he is not aware of himself. And the inner core, where he is aware of himself, is not necessary to recover because it is original as it was before. So that gradation from the light to darkness, from bliss to suffering, from truth to falsehood, from life to death, yes, is movement from Adhyatma to Adhibhuta, to its periphery. Yeah? It's a fall of this being to the place or to the state where it is not aware of its own divine origin. So, and the consciousness which is precipitated can turn outside or inside. It is within this being. So the faculties of consciousness of Adhidaiva epistemology. Consciousness operates on Adhyatmic level by functions or operations. Sri Aurobindo says secret operations of consciousness, known as samjnana, jnana, vijnana, prajnana. On Adhidaiva level by faculties of consciousness, mind, word, hearing, seeing, that what we know as our faculties. Yeah? We know them as seeing and hearing, speaking and thinking, feeling. These are the faculties. And on the Adhibhuta level, they operate by senses, indriyas of Sankhya, subordinate to the sense mind. Our indriyas.
What are the secret functions? I know these names, but are we going to go into those?
Yes, we will go into all the details. We will see how these secret operations become our faculties of consciousness on the level of Adhidaiva, and how they become our senses on the level of Adhibhuta. These are the
I couldn't tell the difference between like the faculties of consciousness and Adhideva, the mind, word, hearing, and then the senses is just the eyes and ears. As in, isn't it the same thing?
On every level, as it was here shown, there are three levels. These things will be presented in their own, so to say, domains. Like here, just look at it. The functions, or these secret operations, the faculties on the Adhidaiva level, and the senses on the Adhibhuta level. We call them like this. We know them like this. Yeah, we talk about them in this way. But it is the same consciousness pervading the whole self, from Adhyatmic level, from the inner core, where the self is aware of itself, to the outer being where it is not. So on all the levels, there will be these operations of consciousness. We give them names to distinguish, not to mix them up. Yeah? So we call them functions, maybe not good. Operations is a better word. I will change it afterwards. Secret operations for the Adhyatmic level, faculties of consciousness for the Adhidaiva level, and senses for Adhibhuta level, or the organs of sense, if you want. Organs of sense are even better. Eye, ear, tongue, brain. These will be material organs of these senses. It is interesting that
so basically all these are the same, like it's the same hearing, it's the same seeing and everything, just that where your consciousness is placed, it is named into three different things.
Right. Not totally the same, because on that level it changes its characteristic. It becomes a bit different, but essentially it is the same thing which became here that as we know it as ear or eye. Yes, this eye has a depth. Inside it is inner vision, the faculty of seeing things. Yeah. Now, for example, on the vital level, this faculty of seeing is very different than on the mental. On the vital level, it is you see, images in the dream world. When you dream, you see them as beings or as symbolic beings, and so on. But on the mental level, you conceptualize things. You see them as concepts and so on, as numbers. And so in a way, seeing on each level will take a bit different character, features. But it will be the same seeing on that level. Does it make sense?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Right. So on the innermost level, the seeing will be totally different, where there is awareness of oneself, total awareness. There is no doubt about oneself. There is no gap or delay in knowing and understanding oneself. There, the seeing will be totally different from the eye on the physical level. Yeah? But on the physical level, the eye will operate by that innermost faculty, which is coming from the unborn self. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. All right. So let us look into this interesting view on the faculties of consciousness in Sankhya. The faculties of consciousness in Sankhya are known as indriyas or senses. They are dependent on manas, sense mind, or the sixth sense. It is said that by the mind one sees, by the mind one hears, and so on. So we don't see by the eye or by the ear, we see by the mind, which is telling us what is important, what is to be seen, what is to be heard. So they supply manas with information without which they cannot operate, as if it is by manas that the eye sees, by ears, and ear hears by the mind, and eye sees by the mind, says Yatsenko. So,
Vladimir,
yeah?
if they supply manas with the information, then isn't the manas dependent on them?
Yes, totally. Totally. Manas totally depends on them, but what it does, it selects out of what they supply what it wants to have. Manas is connected, according to Sankhya, to the ego sense, ahankara. And ahankara has a preference, desire, and kind of to be something, not to be something. You know? So, in that sense, the selection is taking place.
So when we say, so is it basically that they are dependent on the manas? Why are they dependent on the manas? They still take in whatever they take in.
Right, you're clever. Yes, they take whatever they take, but manas can also direct them what to take. For example, it is said that the Indians in America, they didn't see the ships coming because they never saw ships on the sea. So the sails could be seen to them as clouds. You see, the manas decides whether it is possible or impossible. So you may see the phenomenon, but you may never realize that you even saw it because you are not used to it. Manas doesn't know it. So the eyes saw, but the mind didn't register. And you are right. The eye will supply, but the mind will decide what to see. And then the selection starts, yeah? The mind will direct eye what to see, what to go, where to go, what to hear, what not to hear, and so on. That's what we do. Selective hearing, selective seeing.
So it's safe to say that the manas does rule them. It's not that they rule the manas. Yeah, the manas needs them, but the manas rules them.
Yes, exactly. Manas synthesizes the information as it wants. And it also directs them what to find for itself. So mind is operating by them. They are no more free in the mental structure. So the Sankhya represents the best, in its essence, the best presentation of mental structure of consciousness, where the mind rules the senses. And it is also accepted in the scientific paradigm that only that what senses provide from the outer look at things, yes, is valid form of knowledge. Whatever senses do not provide is something you may think of, you know, it has nothing to do with reality. You may, you know, imagine things. But what senses provide from the physical world, that kind of indicator is the valid knowledge. That's why they try to create all these machines which will select or which will gather the data from the outer world as senses do. And in that
this is why I feel like even they're ruling the mind in a way, because they're only providing what they're providing. The mind has no option but to just use that, no?
Right, yeah, right. Yeah. They are ruling the mind in the sense what they provide, but mind determined them in the provision, yeah? So they will be providing what mind wants, and that's where the problem lies. That our mind and ego will see what it wants to see, because it will already instruct the senses. The senses are much vaster than the mind's selection. They can provide the true knowledge, but the mind will be always selecting what it wants. It will never go for the true, valid presentation of reality by the senses. It will dominate them, synthesize them, reshape them as it wants. And if you think that senses give not valid information, it's not true. They would do it if mind would let them, but mind is dominating and interfering.
No, if the mind wasn't dominating, is it not true that anyways, even then the senses don't provide you a complete picture?
No, then they will provide.
Oh, they would?
They would, because they are truly connected to the faculties of consciousness. They are consciousness. Why consciousness would not provide you an objective picture of the world if it is not manipulated, if it is not interpreted all the time by somebody? It could give you, as a mirror, as a pure mirror can reflect the being the same way the senses could reflect the existence.
Yeah, but for example, I mean, it's not like we're using all the senses that exist. So how is it going to be a complete picture, even if, say, the mind wasn't interfering?
Yeah, and here we have to look into it, whether it is complete or incomplete set of senses. When I speak about senses, I don't mean the eye and the ear. I mean the indriyas, which are behind them, yes? The seeing not only the outer objects, but the inner sense, the inner experience, the inner, the vital, the mental, and beyond, supramental seeing. So if you take this sight throughout, you will find that it will give you very concrete and pure representation of reality if it is not manipulated or interpreted by some ego sense. It will be selective then. And this selective seeing and hearing is important for the creation of the varieties of being, of multitude creation. So, well, it's an interesting discussion in general. Who determines who, whether senses the mind or mind the senses? Both determine one another, I think. They are both working together to create this mental structure. We will have some introduction to the shift of paradigms later, and I will explain the difference between mental structure and pre-mental knowledge. There was a different type of knowledge, which is in the ancient Upanishads, and then there was even a deeper look of the Vedic knowledge. We will come to it later. But now we are dealing with the mental structure of consciousness, where mind determines the senses and their inputs. Right. Okay, now this is the Sankhya. Purusha is the self, unborn self, beyond birth. There are many Purushas, many individuals according to Sankhya. There is one Prakriti or Pradhana with Rajas, Tamas and Sattva gunas. And there is a manifestation of Buddhi, pure reason or higher mind, Ahankara, ego sense, Manas, sense mind, and all the following five tanmatras, five mahabhutas, five jnanendriyas, and five karmendriyas, according to the five mahabhutas. So five mahabhutas are these outer elements known to us as Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apah, and Prithvi, which are based on five tanmatras of the state of being which can be described in these terms as ethereal, aerial, fiery, liquid, and solid. It is not yet the material existence, it is something subtle beyond the material existence. 5 matrices, if you want, of creating the matter in this particular format. And 5 Mahabhutas, Mahabhutani, Pancha Mahabhutani, as they are known in the literature.
What does Tan Matra mean?
Tat Matra means the matrix of that. Yeah? It's like tattvas. They are the creatrixes of this one being. They're kind of manifesting it in these subtle modes of being. These are modes, modalities of being, from which Pancha Mahabhutani is produced, basically. So behind wind or air, there is something which we can recognize as Tanmatra, very subtle sense of it. They are all coming to the material existence. They are determining the materiality, the physicality of our existence.
So these operate at what level within this Adhibhuta, Adhideva?
Right. It is all turned outside Adhibhuta. It is all for Adhibhutic, Bhautic level.
Okay.
Tanmatras and Mahabhutani, Pancha Mahabhutani, it is on the Adhibhuta level. But Karmendriyas and Karmendriyas is the Adhidaivic level turned towards the Mahabhutas, but Jnanendriyas are per se Adhidaivic level. So to say, hearing, seeing, touch, taste, smell, they belong properly to the vital world, to the vital faculties, yes, which are, of course, embodied in the physical senses, in the physical sense organs, as ear, as ear, eye, and so on.
So the Jnanendriyas, they are looking inward, or are they?
No, they are in themselves, and that is kind of important also to understand that Indriyas not not only 2 possibilities. I'm coming back to this scheme here. It is not only to look inside or outside, but they can look also, not look anywhere, but trying to satisfy their own sense. So to say, they are looking for self-satisfaction. When Sri Aurobindo describes the Vedantic yoga in the Kena Upanishad, he says that the sense of this yoga was that the indriyas or the senses should not turn only within and look for the adhyatmic realization as against looking outside, though this paradigm would be presented as true one in the post-Vedic period. So the whole Mayavadic approach would be not to look outside, but to look inside. And finding adhyatmic level of consciousness, finding one's unborn self, to drop, to leave the adhibhutic level, to leave the nature, to be, so to say, freed from nature. And this is mukti or moksha, yes? Not to be born again, to go away from the surface of consciousness and never come back to it. But Sri Aurobindo describes it beautifully in Kena Upanishad, saying that ancient Vedantic yoga was different. It was not turning within and never coming back to the surface. But, and that is in the Kena, and we will maybe read with you, you will read with Sampad these these Upanishads, but maybe we will have with you a session on Upanishads to explain these details. I will send you the file, by the way, on it, and so you can read with all quotations of Sri Aurobindo. He explained.
The faculties that exist in themselves at the Adideva level, those are specifically the vital faculties that just want to satisfy themselves? Is that
right? They're looking for self-satisfaction according to the Upanishads.
okay?
And that creates our ego sense. Yeah? For example,
Okay.
they think that they are the creators. Yeah? They are the creator. They do not know. There is the whole parabola in Kena Upanishad where they are presented as they thought that they are great, that they created the world. They didn't know the Brahman behind them. And the whole story goes on that Brahman appears in front of them and they don't recognize him. They do not know who is this spirit, and there is the whole journey there. We will come to it later. So in a way, these faculties are thinking that they are the thing. Yeah.
But in the Adideva level, aren't the mental faculties there too, and then aren't those turning inwards towards the deeper knowledge?
Say it again, please. I just didn't get what you said.
Within the Adideva level, the higher mental faculties, aren't they turning inwards towards the Adhyatma to look for a deeper knowledge? Not the vital ones, but the mental ones?
Right. Even if they are turned within, looking for the deeper knowledge, they are looking for self-satisfaction. So to say, they want to have their own enjoyment. Yeah?
Right.
Well, we have to touch upon Aitareya Upanishad, where the creation is made, how these faculties were created, and it's kind of important. They came out of the Purusha, these universal Purusha faculties, and plunged into the deep ocean of inconscient. And there they started to seek for the embodiment of that universal Purusha, but there was no suitable shape. So they evolved in the evolutionary process. They found the body, they built the body of Purusha, of man, and they embodied him. So to say, they represent, the faculties represent the universal Purusha in the individual form. We all operate by consciousness, which is universal, though we think it is our own. We think it's my side. Actually, it's not my side. It is the universal Purusha side, which is operating within me. But my idea is that I see it like this. I have my subjective views. I have my own understanding, and so on and so forth. This selection, this kind of distortion is made by two things, by the ego sense, which appeared from the desire of these faculties to satisfy their own needs. They have their own self-satisfaction. Because in this world where there is no light of Purusha, of higher consciousness, they are seeking for food, for satisfaction. They were too long hungry. They were hungry too long and wanted to get to that perfect match with the universal Purusha. And they created this particular sense of ego. But this, I'm going now back to the previous paradigm, not Sankhyayic, just to explain to you that Vedantic yoga, according to Sri Aurobindo, was different. And he says they should not look neither inside nor outside. They have to become totally passive, consciously passive, and to receive the inner light of Brahman and to let it go to the surface, to let it come to the surface. If they become channels from Adhyatmic level to Adhibhutic level, channels, only channels of consciousness, without their own specific demands, without their own satisfactions, then this transformation can take place. And this was the Vedantic, ancient Vedantic yoga. Neither inside nor outside only, but inside and outside, and allowing the inner being to manifest outside.
But that requires, that inevitably requires you to first turn inside, right? And then start from there. Like it's inside to outside.
Right. But it requires to look inside, but without closing your outside look. Because what has happened in the post-Vedic period, that it was totally cut off, outer look. You have to look only inside. Outside there is nothing to look at. There is nothing. This world is the world of death and disease, and you have to leave it as soon as possible and go to your inner being and find your inner self, and never, ever come back. And this is something very different from the ancient Vedantic yoga, which was to bring the inner spirit, the inner consciousness, Brahman, to the surface of creation and to change the surface. And it is said even that we can know the outer world only through this bringing of the inner being to the surface. You cannot know anything here outside. It's not knowable unless you bring that inner light to the surface. So here it's the whole dilemma. You can see the simple picture, but there's so much about it, so much around it. And that is Sri Aurobindo's yoga. Sri Aurobindo's yoga is transformational. It wants to change this world with the inner light, with the inner consciousness. So not looking inside to get rid of the outer nature, not going to the nature and thinking that this is all what I have to do, but something totally different, neither nor, but the third way, yes, to become aware of the inner spirit and to become consciously passive and perceptive of that spirit and to allow it to come. Sri Aurobindo says it will not come immediately, it will come slowly in flashes. There will be a flash of that consciousness. And then there will be a gap, long gap, where there will be nothing. You have to wait again and again. And these flashes will become more often. And at the end, they will become the whole flood of that consciousness will come to the surface. But to wait for it for too long, we are very impatient beings, and our indriyas will be suffocating. They will want enjoyment. They will want beauty. They will want, our eye wants to see beautiful things. Our ear wants to hear beautiful sounds and music. Our words want to create poetry. And all these things are satisfying indriyas. We create a beautiful world around us to satisfy these indriyas. Notice, there is nothing else we are engaged in. We are just engaged in the satisfaction of indriyas. I want to have a good food, tasty. I don't want to be hungry. I want to have a nice, soft touch. I want to have something all the time I want, And these are indriyas. We are satisfying them non-stop. In the inner world or in the outer world, there is no difference. In the inner worlds, we are doing the same. We want to watch beautiful movies, which are really meaningful. We want, to imagine good things. We want to have good meditation with beautiful images and light and silence. We want to satisfy indriyas inside and outside, non-stop. We don't do anything else but that. And that is our egoistic perception. That is what is ahankara about. It is about satisfaction of indriyas. Now, they have to renounce their self-satisfaction, which is the whole difficulty is here. They have to stop this thinking. They have to allow the inner light to come through them to the surface. And this is something nobody is ready to do. Because if you do this, the Indriyas would feel very insecure. They would want to have something. They would suffocate. Now, do you have a strength of the inner being to allow this to happen? So this is the test of the yogis. Usually we don't do it longer than some period of time, and then we see, oh, this is too heavy, too difficult, meaningless life. Why should I be like this? And instead of waiting for the true light to come and to go through them to the surface, we just come back to our ordinary life and again satisfy indriyas. This is what is happening to all of us. Makes sense?
Can we go back to the page with where the tanmatras were written?
Right. But did it make sense what I said?
Yeah, I think I was on mute. I said yes like 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I need some feedback sometimes because I already did this mistake.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense now. Thank you for doing it again. I just wanted to know, so what is the relevance of what you've written under the Purusha? As in, what is the relation here with the Buddhi, Ahamkara, Manas, with the Prakriti? I mean, where is it falling in?
Right. Well, Purusha is an unborn self. There are, according to Sankhya, of this Sankhya, Purushas are many, as souls are many. Yeah? There are many souls, and there are many Purushas, and there is one Prakriti, which is kind of giving its kind of material for Purusha to as a body. So we will.
But isn't there just one Purusha as well?
Right. In the ancient Sankhya, there is also for example, Sankhya of the Gita, there is Purusha who is universal spirit also behind these Purushas. And there is even Purushottama. But in the traditional Sankhya, there are many Purushas in one Prakriti. Yeah? This is a logic system, and it is even considered to be atheistic system. Atheistic, there is no God. That's why there are many souls, but they are not gods. Yeah, these are we.
So this is quite different. This is quite different from what Sri Aurobindo wrote, right?
Right. Sri Aurobindo follows the Sankhya of the Gita.
Okay.
Right. And
yes. So, where do Buddhi and Ahamkara and stuff come in?
Right. Pradhana or Prakriti has these higher levels where the 3 gunas are mixed in such a way where the Buddhi will be represented as sattva mainly. Yes? Sattva will dominate. So sattvic consciousness of nature will dominate in Buddhi. And notice that Buddhi is the higher mind. It is all those levels of the mind until the supermind. And they are under one particular topic, Buddhi. So there are higher Buddhi levels and lower Buddhi levels, and many levels of Buddhi. But they are all in nature. It's nature's creation. The mind is natural creation. It's not the spirit. And it's kind of interesting. So mind is natural. It's not something which belongs to the self, unborn self, so to say, spirit, Purusha.
But it's like it's really different from whatever was natural until then, right?
Right. Everything is natural here. Everything which you deal with as instrument, as an instrument of knowledge, will be the creation of nature. And something which is different, which the self is involved in it, will be different from it. It won't be that. So you can find the Purusha, separate Purusha from Prakriti by this device which was proposed in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, neti neti. Whatever you can identify as something, it won't be the spirit. Because the spirit can't be identified by anything.
But then, for example, the psychic being, that's not natural. That's coming from the Purusha, is it? Or that is natural because it's a part of Prakriti?
Well, yes, psychic being is a separate topic. Sankhya doesn't deal with it somehow, and we will maybe take it to, yes, it's a projection of Purusha, of unborn self, into the midst of Prakriti, but it is revisiting it. It is reincarnating, just coming and going. It cannot stay because of the conditions of Prakriti, yes, because of its tamas, because of its inconscient spirit. It doesn't provide the flexibility enough for it to stay. So it is rigid in its power, and this rigidity destroys the being. So we have to die physically, and the spirit or the psychic has to go and to come back again and try again and again and again until it is done. But it's not here in the skin. You can't see it. Or you can say it's Purusha. Truly speaking, we can say that Purusha, when it pays attention to Prakriti, when it looks at Prakriti, he is Sakshi, he is the one who is witness. He gives his witness to Prakriti, touches Prakriti with its look, with its consciousness touch. Then Prakriti starts creating. And this look, this touch, this projection can be understood as embodiment of psychic. But it's a very, very approximate explanation. Yes. So one can say that the psychic is here in the very engagement of Purusha with Prakriti.
But I still don't understand what you mean then by there are natural things and then there are those things which are not natural and they're coming from the self. So if they can't be identified, then how do you identify them?
Say it again. I'm just get to you. What do you don't understand?
You said that there are things that are natural, right? And then there are things that come from the Purusha, from the pure self, and they can't be identified. So then how do you identify them?
We can't identify them. We identify them through that what Prakriti does. Prakriti does everything to satisfy the Purusha. Her sole and only purpose is to satisfy the Purusha. So whatever she does, she will do everything to do it, to get it. And in that sense, we can kind of know that Purusha is there because everything exists for his sake, so to say.
We can only identify that which is natural, essentially.
We can do only natural identification because there is nothing here in this world which we can identify as Purusha. He is not an object, he is a subject. Everything else is the object.
Okay.
You cannot have him as object. Of course, Mother could. Mother could see the psychic beings differently, but it is very, very different from us. She has a higher consciousness, transcendental, which can allow her to see the psychic being as the object. So for that, you need to be much higher than we are.
Okay.
We are looking from the psychic being at everything. So it is our light which brings everything into vision. How can we really see the light, the source of light, when we see reflections of all the beings, all the instruments and so on. Even the mind is very difficult for us to see. We can't see the mind. We can't see Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Already on that level we can't, but we can figure out by the mind that they are there, just analyzing the nature. By analyzing the nature, we can presume, we can presuppose that there must be the origin, the reason, of this manifestation. And that's how we deduct from that, by logic. But truly speaking, this is a logical system. They did it, they created Sankhya by logical thinking. And Sri Aurobindo somewhere describes that they did it in this way that they reduced, it's a reductionistic method. They reduced the whole vision of the world to the tattvas, to those elements which can't be reduced. These are irreducible elements here, all these.
But when they identified the Purusha, how did they do that if they cannot identify him?
They can't identify him. That's why they put him beyond, you see. Nobody
So
can
basically everything that couldn't be identified was put as Purusha.
Right. There is the only one thing which cannot be identified is Purusha, and of course Prakriti in her state of pradhana, in her state of original state. Yes, we can't identify her because there are no yet instruments of knowing. Buddhi is the first instrument of knowing. How can you identify something which was beyond it? Which that created, which the Buddhi was the product of that creation. So it's like father and mother, if you like. So you can't identify them being the child. Of course you can, objectively in this world, but and you can identify in this method of deduction, thinking, that they must be there. Otherwise, where this buddhi is coming from, ahamkara, manas, and all these other elements, there must be some origin of them. And so that's how we come to them. But in this system, yes, buddhi is more sattvic. That's what you were asking. Ahamkara is more rajasic. And manas is more, and that rajasic development takes place, but more tamasic in a way. So we have this kind of three gunas domination in every aspect. Yeah? And the same will be here in the Panchamahabhutanis. We will have more sattvic akasha, and then there will be more and more tamasic. In the middle will be a rajasic Agni. Akasha is the sattvic one, Agni is more rajasic, and Prithvi is most tamasic. So these grades of gunas, of the qualities of pradhana, will be everywhere seen. It's kind of interesting to think. Right, and so these five jnanendriyas, hearing, corresponding to the akasha, touch to the vayu, sight to the vision, the light, the heat, which generates light, and sight appears, apas, waters, to the taste, the rasa, the essence, prithvi, to the smell. Because smell is nothing but particles of the physical being traveling, flying, and touching the receptors. So we need to have a physical being for smell. Smell does not exist in the beyond matter. Taste exists beyond matter, but not smell. It's kind of interesting to think. But these taste and smell are already the projections of these three first pure indriyas, hearing, touch, and sight. This hearing, touch, and sight are original and only indriyas, so to say. But being reflected, so to say, on reflected in the material manifestation, in the matter, through the matter, they create two more, the taste and smell. So all the elements of them are presented in taste and smell. Sri Aurobindo is beautifully describing it somewhere in the synthesis. There is a whole quotation, you can find it on Indriyas. Just type Indriyas in the synthesis and find his explanation, where he says how from one-dimensional ether it becomes this complex matter. And so one-dimensional ether adds one more dimension and it becomes touch, because the vibration in the consciousness, which is not yet touching but vibrating, has to meet another vibration, and they have to touch one another. And when they touch each other, there is this friction. The friction of two vibrations creates the touch. And this touch then is kind of turned into the knot of the third vibration. So there is not only an obstruction of two, the friction of two, but there is the third one, which doesn't allow these to go away or to bounce from one another, but ties them up. And that creates the three-dimensional impossibility for them to go off. And that creates the heat. It heats up. It burns. And this burning generates light. And heat generates light. And from there we have a sight. So you see, the sight is not the first, but third, according to Sankhya. It's in the materialistic way of thinking is very interesting, because we will come to another paradigm and you will see very different thing. But in this logic is kind of interesting. And this knot, there's a heat, which cannot go anywhere, only burn and emanate light, now will add one more vibration, which will make it formless, but fluid substance, formless, fluid, uninterrupted being, as the water is, liquid. It has its own sustainable being, but doesn't have a form, rigid form. It can flow, but it already has a substance. Before there was no substance at all. It's the first time we have a substance on the level of liquid. But it doesn't have form. But when we add one more vibration, it makes it rigid and it becomes matter. It becomes solid, physical thing. And it's kind of interesting to think about it. It's a kind of meditation of how this world was created. And these states, this consciousness of Jnanendriyas, hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, correspond to these levels or these activities of nature. And notice they are all nature. They are not Purusha. And they have also karmendriyas, which is even more complex, more difficult to correspond. How Sankhya did it, it's kind of always a question with karmendriyas, because these karmendriyas will be obstructing the knowledge, will be grabbing or kind of conserving the knowledge, the light of Purusha, kind of introducing it into our subconscious being, into our tamasic cave of darkness in us, which we all have to discover one day and open up. So these karmendriyas are speech, hands, legs, procreatory and excretory organs. Basically, these are the organs which have to be pacified for the sake of deeper meditation, to find oneself. If these karmendriyas are active, it is very difficult to be perceptive of the inner spirit. They are always obstructing the light of the inner spirit. That's why the methods of yoga were developed, where we become totally immobile. We close our eyes, we relax our hands and feet, we stop talking, we pacify our mind, we don't have words in our mind. Then we can perceive deeper sense of ourselves. But whenever we start moving, walking, doing something with the hands, speaking, or even other things, then this perception of the inner light becomes difficult, if not impossible. So we can be either active or perceptive. When we are perceptive, we become inactive. When we are active, we forget about the inner being. We are totally taken by the outer. We are going with whatever Indriyas wants us to do. Indriyas want us to satisfy them, we will satisfy them. That's what karmendriyas do to us. They make us unaware of our inner light and tie us up back to the satisfaction of Indriyas. In the Vedas, they are called panis. Those panis, traffickers of light. We will come to them again later in the Vedic, in terms of Vedic paradigm. Okay, I think it is enough for today. We will stop at this, and I will continue from the next slide.
You were just referring to pani as the hands only, because we were listening to a story of the panis by Sampath, and it was the ones that are the bargainers, the ones that are the thieves, the thieves that steal the cows, the light of consciousness. Is that referring to the pani here, or is that a different one?
No, panis are with no cerebral short R, and this is the Vedic word. Pani, long R, is a hand, but panis, and they are related, by the way, these roots. Sri Aurobindo explained this in The Secret of the Veda, that all the words, pani, pada, even procreatory organs, penis, we have in Latin, penis. He says it is not by chance. It is really related to this root pan, to trade. Ipayus, also excretory organ. They are all started with pa because they relate to the same root. And that's kind of interesting to think, because karmendriyas represent exactly this movement of our being in the embodied consciousness. They were born out of the inconscient being. And because of that, they do not know how to act differently according to the light. They will always grab and steal the light. These are the panis. Of course, hands are the most visible stealers. Yeah, we steal.
So all of them.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are obstructing the light, basically.
Right.
All action basically obstructs the light.
Right. Action of the physical being obstructs the inner perception. And that's what Sri Aurobindo was doing in his yoga, in his room. He was walking by meditating. He was bringing the light into this indriya, karmendriya of pada, feet. We have to be able to walk and to have inner contact with inner self. We have to be able to work and have this contact. This is karma yoga. Yeah? Karma yoga was meant to do that trick, to allow us to be active and perceptive simultaneously, which is very difficult, it seems.
He was doing that through walking meditation, basically.
Right.
One of the ways.
Right. And Mother was introducing this karma yoga in ashram, giving everybody to do something like washing dishes. Yes? Washing dishes, you can be still in meditative state, because it's a mechanical, repetitive work where you don't have to be very aware of something. So it is really helpful to become more aware of oneself by doing that work. And people were thinking, oh, she gave me this heavy work, in the dining room. I am a great philosopher, you know, coming from the West, and now I have to wash dishes here. But it was helpful for them to really become aware of their inner self. Later they recognize it. And they love this work. And up to now, you can see, up to recent time, Babaji, who was 100 years old, was going there to wash dishes, you know, because it became a kind of meditation in itself. The work becomes a meditative state where you can discover yourself. That is the beauty of karma yoga, and this is very Vedic and profound. That's why Krishna says in the Gita to Arjuna, this was the ancient knowledge which was lost in time, and now I'm giving it to you again. It's from the beginning of time, karma yoga, where the spirit and matter can work together, the sacrifice. The spirit can come to the activities of life, but we lost it because of these karmendriyas. We became too active, too much focused on the satisfaction of the senses. All right, very good, very nice question. Thank you, Luca.
Vladimir?
Yes.
We were earlier having that image, the three circles, right?
Right.
And can you categorize them? Can we correlate with the tanmatras and the five indriyas and all that? Can we equate it to any of these portions? Like,
well, but we don't need to do it. You have a sense of heavy is below and light is above. Yes.
okay.
Sattvic is above and tamasic is below, and there is a whole gradation. Nature created the devices according to the faculties of consciousness. By the way, what is interesting here, we can correlate them through the faculties of consciousness. And these will be exactly here in this jnanendriyas, hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. This hearing, touch, and sight are major faculties of consciousness. So Purusha entered Prakriti somehow. Purusha made Prakriti, impregnated Prakriti with his look and by his consciousness, and she does what he is. Later, of course, this is Sankhya. Later we will see how Sri Aurobindo speaks about it. He will say that Prakriti, we will realize later, it is at the first stage we see Purusha as Sakshi, only a witness who is not involved. And later we realize that Purusha is not only Sakshi, later in yoga, but he is also giving a sanction. He is Anumanta, who gives a sanction to Prakriti. He can say, this I like, this I don't like, and Prakriti will follow him immediately. And he says that this power of Anumanta we have to have for this yoga, because without it we can't do yoga. Prakriti will be, or these senses will be too wild for us. So we have to have a sense of presence of Purusha as Anumanta, who gives sanctions for things to be or not to be. And later, he says, even more we realize that Prakriti becomes Shakti, and Purusha becomes Ishvara. She becomes one part of Purusha. There is no difference between the two. She becomes his energy, which does everything he is. So in this scheme, we can already see that Indriyas are already present in the Prakriti, and she follows their scheme, because these are the faculties of consciousness of Purusha, who revealed themselves in this particular format, in this formation of Pancha Mahabhutani, in this 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. She already created for them some kind of place, made them kind of available in herself to become Shakti of Ishvara. But she is the Shakti of Ishvara, only we do not know it. In this scheme, we do not know it. We think she is something separate from Purusha. But later, we realize that it is not so. There is no separation, truly speaking. This is one and the same being. Maybe I am kind of going too far ahead.
No, I understand what you say, but somehow maybe I didn't communicate my confusion properly. Am I thinking in the right way when I'm trying to relate the Tanmatras, Mahabhutas, and Indriyas and Karmendriyas in respect to the Adibhutas and Adidevas, or is it does it not come in the same?
Yes.
Like what I'm trying to ask is, does all the five, like all the four combinations of the fives, does it come in all the levels, in all these levels, or
there is no leveling, by the scheme, that you look at the scheme 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 has to be leveled. And there is some other leveling here, more subtle, more interesting. The Adhyatma and Adhibhuta is one self, one being, which is precipitated by Adhidaiva consciousness. And Adhidaiva consciousness... Wait a minute.
I understood. Okay.
I will explain. This is important. Adhidaiva consciousness is Purusha.
Okay.
It is that Purusha who paid attention to Prakriti. And Prakriti is that self or being or nature or force of the one being there, which is not aware of oneself. That means at the Adhibhutic level. And once it is paying attention to it, it creates in it all the instruments of its own interference.
Okay.
So Prakriti will recreate Purusha in this format. And that's why these are the faculties here. They are seen on these 5 levels. She is doing the work of kind of bringing Purusha to birth. Yeah?
Okay.
She is the mother and he is the father. And she recreates him, his consciousness here in these 5 Karmendriyas and Jnanendriyas and Mahabhutas. The whole world will be according to Mahabhutas now because there is universal Purusha beyond with his
Okay.
Now, we didn't look into the faculties of Purusha yet, but we will do this in the future, that he is not just one Sakshi, but he has faculties, he has consciousness, yes? And that's what it is important for us. And these faculties will be seen in the next presentation. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your nice questions. And so maybe I will then, Mahendra ji, I see you come back online. That's very nice. Right. Okay, so then I stop here for today and we will come back next time and continue our exploration. Right?
Thank you for repeating again, Vladimir.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.